Hey everyone, it's Austin and welcome back to the channel. It's day 275 on my journey to 2000 where I'll be uploading a video every day until I make it there. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and today we have a special episode. I have my coach on the call here and we're going to do a lesson live. I want you guys to meet him. His name's Chilli. He's been an awesome coach to me. He's been with me since very early on when I started my YouTube channel, and he is looking for more students. So you gotta hit this guy up. And with that, I will turn it over to him to introduce himself. And where can they find you online, Chili?
Hey, what's up, guys? First and foremost, and yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's gonna be really special, I hope. So people can find me at on YouTube first of all at Apophenia Chess. That's APOPHENIHS, and that's where I post all my content. I make series like Road to National Master, and I'm trying to get my title right now. And so yeah, I post really instructive content on YouTube, which anyone can watch for free. And if you are interested in coaching, you can find me at my chess.com profile, which will be linked in the video.
Yep.
But it's just basically thchitty, my username on chess.com, and you can find me through there. And so yeah, a little bit about myself. I have been a chess coach, teaching professionally for about 3 years now, I think. Yeah, 2 years and 7 months, more or less. That's the time span. And my focus is really on people that play for tournaments and want to play over the board. So if you're someone who plays over the board and you want to play some opponent which is higher rated and you don't really know what to play against them, or you think your standard setup isn't good enough, you can hit me up and I can do, besides lessons, just special repertoires for you, like some opening prep. I do that kind of stuff as well on the side. And yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. So are we doing a study on Lichess again, or?
Yeah.
All
So
right.
let me just invite you to that. Tooth.
Tooth. All right. I've got you
Okay, you
here.
ready? Perfect. So what I want to show you today is we are going to look at what I consider to be the greatest game that Gligoric has ever played in his life. I mean, this game is just incredible. It's crazy. And we're going to dive straight into this game. And then afterwards, we're going to look at some Catalan type stuff just to get like the basic ideas. Because you said you wanted to learn the Catalan
Yes,
as light,
sir.
so we're going to be doing that. Get that sorted out for you, and then you'll have like a solid repertoire. I don't want to dive too deep into the Catalan. I want to show you the basics, like what a position would look like, more or less, and the strengths and weaknesses of the position. And I want to leave you to figure it out, like what the best move could be, what the best continuation could be from the middle game.
Sure.
And then, like for next lesson, we'll figure out the small details and all the subtleties that we can hammer out. So without further ado, let's jump into the game. This is Gligoric on the black pieces against Avery Thomas, and this is just incredible. So, um, me personally, I've had a lot of trouble in the past playing against the Samish. I'm not sure if many of your viewers have the same problem, but I absolutely hate the Samish. It's just a nightmare for me. And it's gotten bad, like really bad to a point where I only just now recently changed over to this Gligoric line. But before I would play just some really bad stuff. Like I play c6 here with the idea of a6 and b5,
Hmm.
and this is just like a very typical setup you can play. And yeah, I sometimes don't score very well with this, so I kind of figured out I had to make a change, which is how I found this game. So the Samish is basically a cry for war. There's gonna be a fight on the king side. That much is certain. Yeah, all of these ideas. And if you look at the pawn structure, it's very similar. Well, it's gonna be even more similar after, but this is a similar setup as to a opening you'd get in the Sicilian, which is a Yugoslav attack. This is kind of like the pawn formation. If you imagine just there not being this d4 pawn because you've traded off for c5. But this is basically it. And like you pointed out, there's going to be g4, h5 kind of stuff, and all of this kingside attacking. So, well, in this line, Gligoric gives a few comments, and he prefers castling here. And there's a problem with the immediate e5, as you may play in a normal King's Indian, because there can be some problems with knight g2 for starters. Mainly being after you play something natural like c6, bishop g5 really restricts your king side, and this is a very annoying pin to face, and it's actually very easy to go wrong with this kind of setup. One of the ways you could go wrong is, well, people have gone wrong with this. Actually, Glibrick himself has lost with this, and sorry, he's won with this, and he's beaten a guy called Lim, and this is how their game went. And this is actually a very strong attack. King b1, just keeping the king very safe. Bishop b6 is kind of a dubious move because now white kind of gets d5 for free with tempo. Then you have to trade off, and your bishop is kind of passive. g4 comes, just striking. Everything is coming into play, and it's black in a very tough situation here. This is already this is already plus 2.2 for white. So a very hard situation for you to be in, and it's not really clear how you make any progress as black here. What happens in the game is just knight g3, which is supernatural for white, and knight a6 for black, which isn't really all that clear what this is doing. You can already get hit by knight b5 kind of ideas, and that's going to be annoying. Like, let's say knight b5 hitting this pawn. Our queen is hanging, so we'll have to trade, take, but this is just a major weakness in the position, this d6 pawn. And yeah, all of this annoying stuff can happen. Like, the best move after knight b5 is just to go here and hope to god they repeat and just hang this pawn. Like, of course, there's problems here on h2, but white will definitely deal with that in a way. So just a very tough position to be in here as black. And it's what I always tell you, man. I say it's good to play an opening where you have a clear strategic plan to go with it. I don't care about playing the best engine lines or playing the top move every single time. I like playing something which is simple to play. Because in some positions you may have like, oh, you have a -2 advantage as black. Well, is it easy to capitalize on? Many times it may not be easy to capitalize on. And that's the problem, because even though it says -2, it could just well be that you're going to blunder the next move and lose the game. So I like having a very clear-cut plan of action and knowing exactly what you're doing, just like white is doing here. And it gets really difficult if instead of h6 here, you play castles. So the main problem here for black is definitely this bishop g5 move. And Gligric's going to show us how to neutralize this after this line. So castles, queen d2, same sort of stuff. And now you can't afford to play h6 anymore. This just hangs a pawn. So you take and play for the open King's Indian, and now your bishop has a bit more life. This is the argument that black is making here. Knight bd7, long castles, and you can already see that this is literally a Yugoslav setup, or better yet, the Maroczy bind setup for the white pieces, and there's tons of pressure here on the d file. This is super annoying to deal with. I think in these lines, black actually has to give up the d6 pawn by force and just play without it. Like, but there's a really bad way to lose this game, which would be something like queen d6. And the problem with queen b6 is that you open up yourself for a very nasty pin after knight c2. The next natural developing move would be something like knight c5, but now bishop b3. And look at how painful this pin is. This pin is basically unbreakable, because anytime you break it, bishop is going to take here and double this pawn. And there's ideas of like b4 coming in, this knight coming to a4, queen f2, adding more pressure on the diagonal, and all of this is going to be very painful for this these pin pieces here. So very, very annoying here. And before switching over to that kind of c6 line I was illustrating, this kind of idea here, I used to play c5 in these positions. But c5 isn't as testing as Gligeric's line. The problem with c5, well, it's actually a very equal game, but it's funny. Let's take a look at this. So you play c5 here, And the funny thing about this is that you are close to just sacrificing a pawn after take. Queen trade, which looks kind of strange here as black, because why would you allow this to happen? Why would you allow this queen trade in a way where you deny yourself castling rights and you're going to get hit with a very strong bishop e3? Well, the reason you can do this is because there's a very clear maneuver that you have to play on this move specifically to not get punished by it, which is a strange one as well. Knight fd7. And basically, you hold this pawn, your knight is covering any checks that would happen along this file, and your bishop is open. So there's these three elements here. And something would continue, like let's say knight g2, knight c6. This was a game between Georgiou and Fischer. Fischer had the black pieces, and this was played in 1970. So long castles, it's not a problem because we're not getting checked. However, this knight is pinned now and it can't defend this pawn, so a very natural move would be like b6 defending, but now f4 because white is able to take up this space and will try to neutralize this bishop with something like pawn to e5, just cutting off as many squares as possible, trying to jump in with knight d5 themselves and add some pressure this way. The bishop b7 is very natural, kind of eyeing this pawn a bit. g3, defending, knight a5, now trying to strike on this c4 square, but simply b3 defending. And this is a very equal endgame. It's very equal because there are some squares that have been lightened up. Like this has been loosened up a bit. Your bishop has a lot of life. And you can hold white's pieces quite well with a move like e6, let's say, just avoiding any kind of knight d5 jumps. So you're neutralizing their plans. You now have plans of rerouting your knight somewhere good, and this will be happy days. And the interesting move that Georgiou plays here is bishop h3, which is actually the top engine move. And the idea is just to hammer away with f5 and this kind of stuff. And it happens in the game. Let's see. So king e7, f5, bishop e5, let's say take. And, well, black has very nice pieces here. White's pieces are not as good. They are somewhat problematic because they're not harmoniously working together. This knight doesn't really have a good way to enter the game in a meaningful way. So after bishop f4, this knight is kind of stuck. There's not many that ideas. And black has a very clear plan of bringing this knight back into the game, just defending this pawn and holding on, and trying to capture this pawn themselves. Plus our bishop is very nicely placed in the center of the board. And if you ever take this, then knight takes back, and your knight is very centralized and well placed.
Yeah, we definitely wouldn't take on f4.
No, sir. If we take on if we take on f4, then we're just helping them. Like let's say this and this, and then how do you deal with this? If you push, you just hang this, and it's GG on the spot. It's actually mating in 7 moves, the engine says. So this would be very, very not good. So anyways, the move here is castles. And the idea here is that now if you go bishop to g5, there's a solution to this, which I was talking about earlier. So first of all, he points out that there's a blunder, which is e5. I myself have played this many times in blitz games and just been severely punished. The problem of playing this is now there would be take, and after queen trade, knight d5. And then this is pinned because if you take, you lose the rook. And there's this also as a threat. And how do you deal with this? You probably can't even play knight a6 here, to be honest, because this is also being hit twice. So really, what do? You probably have to give up the rook in this case. Something like takes, and then... Yeah, you can't even defend this pawn, so probably just try for this. But then again, king f2... Yeah, it's just a really nasty position to be in. And
pretty busted.
Something like this. Yeah, really busted. So you can't play e5. That much is clear. So what's the refutation? And why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because I have in the hopes that after we sort out your repertoire for white, we learn these kind of King's Indian structures for black. But I'd like to take a closer look at this c5 move, which is what Gligoric recommends. And not just for the same-ish, I think it would be very good if we learned the Benko Gambit. Because to be brutally honest, I feel like a big problem for you has been calculation. And I feel like that's kind of my fault as well, because I've given you a lot of like, okay, this is a clear cut plan that, oh, that's hard to say, that a clear cut plan that you would play in a position, and that kind of leans you towards playing like, oh, this is a natural move, I'll play this, instead of really taking into account the necessity for deep calculation in a position, basically. So the banker would set you more towards the middle way to calculating a bit more. So okay, c5 is the refutation. Why is that? Because if you try to take this pawn, you don't have to recapture. What does black play here?
What does black play here? I'm just calculating some stuff.
Okay.
Is it queen a5?
Perfect, man. Queen a5. And the point of queen a5 being that if you take this pawn, you actually hang your bishop
Yeah.
as white, so you can't do this kind of stuff. And it's also adding tons of pressure on this knight, which is now pinned. And you can easily recapture the pawn with queen a5, which is very sorry, queen takes c5, which is a very typical maneuver
Mm-hmm.
in many positions, including the Catalan. So this is why I chose these specific openings for you, is because all of them have a sort of dialogue between each other, and you can find ideas which are similar and apply them to the different positions. So queen
Yeah.
a5 here, and this is just a very clear-cut defense. Like, there's not even that much to analyze. Like, you're gonna win back the pawn. This bishop is gonna become a monster because it's on the diagonal. Maybe you can try for some tactics. Like, this is also very Benko-esque. Like, this knight moves out the way, and you've got this lined up already.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't have, like, if they play a bad move, like, let's say a really bad move, then just this. But of course, I'm not going to play something like this. Maybe they do in a blitz game, but I mean,
Right.
this would be more or less the dream. And it's good to know this kind of stuff. So,
You still there? Did we just lose you? Hello. Earth to Chilli.
but yeah, that was my internet cutting out for a second.
No, you're good.
Um, you got me? Where did we cut off?
So we had just said, um,
That this is the dream.
yeah, that's the dream basically. And I was going to bring a little anecdote why I was able to find Queen A5 so easily. Is I'm just gonna go back. If I had $1 for every time this has happened, I would be a pretty rich guy. So let's say here, here, here. The best move for black is this, and if they take, this is a very natural move for them.
Yep, yep.
And then, I mean, I've won, no exaggeration, like 10 blitz games this way. It's just like, it's so funny. Anytime the bishop is on g5, it's so vulnerable to queen a5. But,
Yeah, I mean, I've won rapid games like that, and it's insane how many people fall for this. So,
right.
yeah, sometimes the traps do pay off, and it's good to know that the traps because they are like actual patterns you can remember and apply. So this would be definitely one of those cases. So, um, let's go back to this bishop g5 move. So it can be prevented by c5. Now, what about a different move, like let's say knight g2? This has also been played a lot and has been tested out. And this is actually a game that's been played between Bobotsov and Tal. And yeah, he goes with c5 as well. So c5 is most definitely always going to be the move in these kinds of same-ish positions because the attack is not same-ish. He's going for a big king side attack. You can go for a big play on the queen side. So something like a6 and b5. Um, you can even play knight a6, knight c7 first and support this, or followed by
Right.
bishop to d7, rook b8, and then you've got an open file, you've got some play, and it's going to be really good, especially if he has castled this side, which he probably will have to do to get this rook into the game. Yeah. So bishop b3 would be just a normal continuation. He could also have played bishop b3 and then c5, but he's played in this case knight g2 first. So then knight bd7. This would be more or less the position. For white and black, what opening do you see this?
The Sicilian.
Which Sicilian?
The dragon.
Which variation of the dragon? Sorry for putting you on the spot as
No,
well. I
no,
know.
it's the Yugoslav attack.
um, you can find this in the Yugoslav, but it's very reminiscent also of the Maroxy bind, where they play this kind of b3. They're probably
Yeah.
not going to play b3 because they're queenside castling here, but you can see what's going to happen in a few moves. King b1,
Hmm.
you're going to play on the queen side for a big queenside attack, so b5, and now look what they do. Knight d5. Is this not the most typical maneuver of the Maroxy bind you've ever seen? And the point here is that if you trade queens, you're going to lose this pawn,
Mhm.
and then black's just going to lose a solid pawn, and it's going to be worse. So black has to figure out something here in this position.
Mhm.
If you just go back to d8, which is very valid move, you're probably gonna get killed after takes, and let's say takes. Queen d8, knight takes, pawn takes, and if you pawn takes, congratulations, you've lost a rook. Take, and rook
Right.
takes with check, by the way. So this is probably not a move. You could argue bishop takes is a better response, but still not perfect. There is, however, a perfect move here for black to play, so I'll give you some time to try and find it.
Okay. Um. So the pawn is hanging with check. Our queen is hanging, and the game hangs in the balance. So queen d8 was definitely my like intuition move. Like I would play that in a blitz game pretty quick. But let me look for. I'm not seeing any tactics to capture the knight. Um,
Well, it's going to be a very strange move in any case, because the only two
yeah,
natural moves you do have is either queen trade or queen d8.
right,
Queen d8 is a lot less worse than queen takes, so you can already discard this queen trade idea.
right.
So it would either be like a queen move, or you do capture the knight. And since it's probably not going to be this, since it comes with check as well, um, let's try and find a justification for sacking the queen.
Okay, I was trying to see if b4 worked to like try to come
B4 is
up.
interesting. B4 is
Yeah.
very creative.
Um, but yeah, I didn't see anything that was very conclusive. But okay, let's try to make the queen sack work. Bishop or queen takes queen. Let's calculate. Let's say rook takes. I feel like that's more normal. Or first, sacking the queen. Okay, what the hell am I talking about? That means taking the knight. Okay, so knight takes queen. Um, the bishop is hanging. So the first thing we should do is probably calculate that. Knight takes e3. Now his rook is hanging. So what does he play here? His queen is kind of offsides, and he can easily move the rook. He can move the rook to attack. So like I basically need to win the rook to be, like somewhat equal in material, So like I've won 2 pieces for the queen so far, but I can't stop there. So let's say that he tries to kick my knight out with tempo. He goes rook d3. So rook d3, my knight is kind of stuck. Kind of stuck, except for knight takes c5. And now I'm hitting the queen, and that just feels so unclear. The queen can go to, I would say probably like c7 is a very active square for his queen. There's not an easy way for me to boot it out. It's also pressuring the e7 pawn through my knight, which is hanging. Um, and then from there, man, I don't know. I feel like the game can branch in so many different directions, and I've only calculated one line. Um, so knight takes d5, queen takes a5, knight takes e3, rook d3. I definitely think is a move, but I mean we're gonna take this pawn anyway, so maybe he doesn't want to kick our knight into doing that with tempo on the queen. Maybe, well, no, the rook is hanging, so he has to move it, so he might as well attack the knight with it. If he says, say he goes d2, then that ends up being a fork. So I think that going here makes sense. Queen d7, knight f6, queen takes e7. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't see a concrete line, but that would be like, there are other things that I'm calculating that I'm not saying out loud, but
Yeah, but this is really good. What you calculated was really good. What I would say, I liked what you did there, by the way. I like that when you went Queen C7, the
uh-huh,
first time around you said, and then this is scary. And then the second time around, you actually went and calculated, like, okay, Knight F6, Queen takes, and you continued, which is really what you need to do. You need to continue the calculation,
right.
keep it going, because there's no such thing as like, okay, yes, there's a thing that, oh, this isn't clear who's better or who's not. But
Mm-hmm,
that's like because the grandmasters that say that they can actually visualize the position and they just don't know who's better because it's very dynamic and both sides have chances. But they do see till the end of the line.
mm-hmm,
So the move is knight takes, which is a brilliant move. And I'm also going to comment on something else in a bit. Queen takes, knight takes, and then the
mm-hmm.
rook is hit. The rook has to move. Rook d3. And let me just show you what's played in the game, however.
Yeah,
Do I
rook
still have
c1.
you?
Yeah, you still have me.
Okay, because the move wasn't loading in. So what's played in the game is actually Rook C1.
Right.
And I think this is actually a better plan here for the white side because what's black's next move gonna be? Let's say you play here, you're obviously gonna take this pawn, right? You're
Right.
obviously gonna take the pawn. Queen C7 would actually be losing here because of simply ignoring the queen, which is funny because sure, the queen is a good attacker, but the queen won't do a good job of attacking by herself
Mm-hmm.
if all of your pieces are bunched up together. Like let's just say an easy queen trap here, rook b8 followed by rook b7, and the queen is trapped
Mm.
basically. So it doesn't really matter that the queen is infiltrated. Actually, the best move for the queen would be to go backwards. Like let's say queen e1 here. This
Mm-hmm.
would be the best kind of idea here. So this could definitely happen. let's just say the game move happens, rook c1, and at least the idea here now is that after takes, you can sack the rook.
Mm-hmm.
We get this position. And it's a big difference here. And it's funny because, okay, now the material is equal, but let's just say the rook doesn't take. So we get this position after knight takes and the queen goes back. Is this compensation? And it's funny because people don't really stop to consider what you're really getting in return. There's also another important move here, c takes d4,
Mm-hmm.
gaining back yet another pawn. So what you've got is two minor pieces and two pawns for the queen, and that's 8 points of material. And what's really funny, which I wanted to comment on, is that nobody really thinks about pawns in that way. They think about, okay, bishops and rooks and this kind of stuff. Yeah, they may even consider trading a queen for two rooks if they're feeling spicy, but they're not going to trade like a full rook for 5 pawns, which is actually very strong. Like, think of this hypothetically. Would you rather play a side where you're in an endgame and you're playing white with 3 pawns, or you're playing black with 0 pawns but a knight? It's equal material, but realistically, only the white side has winning chances because only they have a pawn and the possibility of making a queen. So
Yeah. I'd rather
pawns need
have
to be,
three pawns against a rook, let alone a knight. Yeah.
yeah, perfect. I mean, that's definitely winning chances, especially if they're together. So it's important to consider the pawns as well. The pawns are a big part of the compensation you get here. But realistically, really what your compensation is this monster bishop,
Mm-hmm.
is based on the queen side where he's castled, and the possibility to bring in all of your pieces to the attack. Like it's
Right.
very easy to play something like,
90. Yeah.
hypothetically, knight c5, bishop e6, push these pawns down the board, bring this rook to the b file, checkmate this guy, just blow him off the board. Like this is what will happen in the game. And yeah, this is kind of what happens in the game. So this is a very cool sacrifice you can play. And yeah, it happens in the game. Tal, genius, absolute genius. So this is a line that you can play for everyone who's watching this video. If you have problems against the Samish, this is kind of like a very in-depth video of how to deal with this kind of Samish stuff. C5 being the key factor here instead of E5. So even if you play King's Indian, it's also good to have C5 in your repertoire for these kinds of positions because it's a lot easier to play. But
Yeah.
anyways, getting on with the game, that's all of that opening stuff out the way. Now we have E5. What? Didn't I just say that C5 was the most accurate? Um, yeah, but this is because Gligoric has found a brilliant innovation to these positions. So if you play c5, you kind of get this position here. Also, just touch on the point where it's not knight g2 first. So it's not the same as last position. We were looking at knight g2.
Yeah.
And if bishop e3 first, then he can actually win a pawn with bishop takes here. First of all, clean trade, bishop takes c5, and this is also to play, but it gets complicated after knight c6,
Mm-hmm.
defending this pawn, knight d5, attacking this pawn again, and now it's actually hanging. And there's no good way to defend this without taking here. So take.
Right.
Game gets really complicated. This is an interesting game move that was played, and this is Karpov against Baum. And unfortunately, black goes for something crazy, and it doesn't end up working out. White manages to stabilize the position and get a really good position. So e5 is the move to play here.
It's tough playing
And
a
then,
dubious move against Karpov.
yeah, it really is. It really is. Karpov is just a genius as well. So d5, closing the position. And really what's going to happen here is just normal King's Indian stuff. So this is very typical to a King's Indian. A6. So in case they want a queenside castle really quickly, you already kind of you kind of get them to stray away from this idea because you have a really quick b5, rook b8, and this kind of advance going on, knight
Mm-hmm.
c5 stuff, and this is very strong. So what happens in the game here is g4 straight away, just going for the attack and saying You can't really push your pawns and attack, whereas you.
Hello?
Sorry, yeah, internet just cut out again.
Yeah.
Again.
For the record, this doesn't normally happen, so it just figures when we're trying to record.
Yeah, like all elements against us, but it's okay. We fight through it. So
Yeah.
what I
So
was
anyway,
saying,
you cut out when you said, we can't really push the pawns and attack him because obviously he's not over here. So,
yeah, yeah. So
mhm.
he can just push these pawns and kill us, while we are just we don't have any clear target because okay, let's say we push all the way up. His king's not there, bro. His king is here. Like,
Right.
what are you doing? So Gligoric actually played this like knowingly, and he had a very cool novelty here, which I will ask you to try and find.
Okay.
So how can we deal with this stuff on the king side?
So, dealing with stuff on the queen side. Number one thing I would say is that we know that his king is semi-weak to checks on the h4 square. So, there you can sack a piece to win 2 pawns here and kill his kingside attack via knight takes g4, pawn takes queen h4, and let's say he blocks bishop f2 and then queen takes g4, and that, of course the line doesn't end there. You could play rook g1, and then we'd be forced to still be on the back foot. So I'm not entirely sure that that's great. I would love to be able to stick around and take the e4 pawn. So let's try to find a better move. Knight takes pawn takes queen h4, bishop f2, queen takes g4, rook g1. I think is just such a natural move there. So if that, we are going to have a hard time staying on the 4th rank to pressure that pawn. We definitely don't want to go queen f4 and trade queens. So what do we want to do? Bishop h6. Rook takes next. Then we're giving up a piece again for the queen, and he's got it for free for us. Oh man, I don't know. I feel like it has to be knight takes, but I'm having a hard time finding it. After rook h1, like, what is the good move? I mean, I guess there is only one move that doesn't blunder the queen, which is queen h5. So,
So if you play knight takes, pawn
uh-huh.
takes, queen check,
Yeah,
bishop f2, we pick up this pawn. But
right.
like you said, rook g1 comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and you said you'd love to stay around to pick up this pawn. Unfortunately, we're not developed enough to do this. Like if
Right.
we had a knight here, let's say, then we'd be able to capture, like after we move our queen, of course. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, it's still not clear how we move our queen to stay on this line. Because the bishop covers this, the knight covers this. If we try and pick up this pawn here, then there may just be stuff like rook here coming in,
Right.
or let's say knight g3 supporting this push, and sorry, this push, then rook coming in, then knight g3 supporting all these kinds of attacking
Yeah, just
moves.
getting
So
roasted.
yeah, I'm just getting absolutely destroyed. And the move that I asked you to find is actually a genius move. It's so hard to find, so it makes sense that it's difficult to find. It's h5. How on earth will you find h5 in a chess game? And this man's Gligoric, in one of the most important games of his life, plays h5 on the board. He's just insane. And the point of this move is that now, if let's say some examples, let's say, okay, what happens in the game is g5, but g5 isn't the best, I feel, but it makes a lot of sense. So g5 isn't good because it closes down the diagonal. and now this becomes very severely less powerful. So let's just say we have h5 on the board.
Mm-hmm.
This looks very natural because you're opening up files. But now the incredible move, knight takes h5.
Mm-hmm.
And why is this incredible? Because the whole idea here is that this bishop is really bad because it's the King's Indian bishop blocked in by the e5 pawn. So you want to make this bishop good, and you make it good by playing on the next move, knight f4, sacrificing a full pawn because this is completely this is complete compensation. If you sack this, you've got this dominant bishop, which is something we've talked about a lot in the past,
Mm-hmm.
the dominant bishop. So this would just be amazing. And notice that white has not castled yet, so now it's all starting to come together. Like you probably don't even have to defend this pawn. You can just defend it tactically somehow. So and this will be good enough. Like, okay, how about queen
95
a
is like
yeah,
screaming to be played.
queen a5 takes followed by bishop e5, hitting both of these, something like this, something along the lines of this. Uh, I feel this would be really good. Also, your rook is being able to come into the game, just perfect. So, this would be definitely a point to be made. H4 is what happens in the game. Sorry, is the example line that Glirik gives, trying to open up this second line,
Mm-hmm.
try and make white better. But now the other knight comes in and just defends, and this knight will be glue, literal glue to the position, and just hold everything together.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the idea. The other idea is that if you push h4 instead of taking on h5 first, then what happens is your line take, knight df6.
Mm-hmm.
If you push g5, then knight g4 comes in, and we're also trying to capture this bishop in order to get the dominant bishop. Um, yeah, and then this would be very powerful for us because the bishop would either have to go to g1 or just be captured, basically, and then
I,
we have the
s-
powerful bishop,
I still
which
feel like
would
this sucks for us though, because like we're not necessarily breaking away the e5 pawn, and our knight is literally trapped. So
it
like,
looks sketchy. I get it. Yeah, it looks
yeah,
really sketchy, but we'll see how the knight comes into the game after in a bit.
okay,
Uh, let's look at takes again.
uh-huh,
If takes after h3, so the idea would be like h3, just defending the pawn,
mm-hmm,
solidifying, preparing to bring the pieces over, and then opening the position. Knight h7 saves everything, which looks really bizarre because you did literally just trap your knight in the corner. But
mm-hmm,
okay, let's take now. Now your idea comes into play. Sorry, queen h4 check,
mm-hmm,
and you get it for free. King moves over is the best move. If you play bishop to f2 now, then just queen takes. Your bishop has been misplaced, and we've
f3's
got all of
hanging,
these
yeah,
ideas coming in. Yeah, f3, maybe even f5 in some really aggressive positions here. Of course, you don't want to hang this pawn, but it can be calculated. Bishop g2 is the example line. Bishop h6 hitting the queen, supported by the queen. Queen h4 check again. King d1. We've traded bishops, and now the king cannot castle, and it's time to start attacking here and adding pressure.
yeah,
Stuff like rerouting the knight back, bringing this knight into the game, maybe f5, really aggressive, just opening up everything because you can do this because his king is stuck in the center now. It's literally stuck. So you can afford to play stuff like f5 and opening up all these sorts of lines, rook over to the f2 square,
mm-hmm,
and it would be amazing. So, and all of this, all from this h5 move, which is incredible. Moving forwards, g5 happens in the game, which is
mm-hmm,
also not good. And exactly with this idea, White is banking on the fact that, okay, I'm not going to have a huge attack, but I can outplay you in the middle game because you have a knight stuck in the corner. It's literally entombed. How does this knight ever get back into the game? You can't even do something like this and this. You would either have to play with f6, but I'm just never going to take you there so that you can't get your knight in the game. And you're gonna have to do something like, let's say, this to allow this, and then you can play the game. But this costs too much time. So what does Gligrick do? He plays f6. But doesn't this literally do nothing if he doesn't take? We'll see. We'll see about that. So bishop g2, f takes, f takes, and it looks like it's the same problem, but really it's not, because now we have b5 and we're starting to throw our own punches. The knight comes to c1, this knight comes to c5, and all of our pieces start coming to life, because literally, again, there's no kingside attack for white. So we're left with the queenside attack. Okay, if his king isn't in the corner, we're going to open up some files and
Right.
lines. So
And for the
b4 comes in.
record, for the audience, the bishop isn't taking that knight because the pawn on g5 would hang, right?
What's that?
The bishop isn't taking that knight because the pawn on g5 would hang, right?
There's a huge number of factors that goes into this. First of all, being
Mm-hmm.
that yes, you would hang this pawn here.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even play this move properly because our rook would just capture, so this is not a possibility. Moreover, you're giving black a majority on the queen side. This would be 3 pawns against 2, which means you're definitely going to get a passed pawn, especially given since all of white's pieces are on the queen side, and you can even push with tempo. So this will come super fast, and this will be weak, and you've given up the most important thing. You've given up the dark square bishop, and you leave the black pieces with this absolute monster, which will come to life soon.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it takes many moves, so like let's say here, 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 someday or another, it will get into the game and it will shine. Like that's the key here.
Right.
So that's why you don't take on c5. So b4 comes in, just trying to stop all of black's plan in the same way that black tried to stop white.
Mm-hmm.
Knight a4. Look at the next few moves. This is absolutely perfect middle game strategy. Knight takes, b takes. We've doubled our pawns. Knight d3, bishop d7, rook c1, bishop b5. Look at all of the improvement move that has happened.
Mm-hmm.
You as black have literally just got doubled pawns and a bishop to b5, which is actually really good, because look at this bishop now. It's cutting absolutely every single light square in the position. And look at white's light square bishop. It sucks. There's literally nothing for it to do. It's literally a long pawn. It's a pawn with a pointy hat,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And it's just chilling out there on the G2 square. Like literally nothing to do. And yeah, so this is absolutely killer. This knight has seemed to make improving moves, has actually no squares to go. Literally no squares to go to. So what is it actually doing? It can't even go here and capture this pawn because it gives up all of this. And it's just terrible here for the white pieces. Knight b2 anyways, nevertheless. And now, again, another brilliant move. So I'll ask you to try and find this one. This one you probably will get. It's reminiscent of a game I showed you recently. And I'll show that for the video after. But black to play here. Again, the key concept. How do we get this dominant bishop?
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, I am struggling to even find a first move here, especially knowing that there's some sort of brilliancy. Um, Dude, I have no idea.
So, what are
I
Black's worst pieces in this position?
Yeah, the bishop and the knight, the
The
dark square
bishop and the
bishop.
knight.
Yeah.
So our bishop is stuck behind this pawn. This
Yep.
knight is stuck because of this pawn. How
Hmm.
can we make a change in the position to these two pawns in one single move?
Rook F5.
Perfect, man. There you go. Rook f4. What a
Oh,
move.
that is not the move that I said.
Oh,
I said Rook F5.
oh, I thought you just got it confused, like you got the coordination mixed up. Oh, I thought you...
No, no.
so...
I
but yeah,
literally, yeah, I still don't understand this. I calculated this.
so
It's like
perfect.
bishop takes, pawn takes. It's like, so what?
So what, you get this bishop. And look at this. If you take, and if you
Uh-huh.
take, you hang this, let's
Right.
say,
But
for
you wouldn't
starters.
take for sure.
You wouldn't take, of course. So
Yeah.
let's say, well, he did take this in the game. This is what happens in the game, by the way.
Yeah, I meant the pawn.
And yeah, then we take.
Hmm.
Of course, you're not going to take the pawn. In the game was played knight d3, but like, okay, let's look at this properly. The engine gives bishop to f1 as the only move to try and survive. But now you've solved both your pieces. Knight takes g5.
Hmm.
This is incoming, threatening to win a queen. This bishop is going to kill everything on this diagonal, so you can't even like properly move the queen. You need to stay defending this one,
Hmm.
which is why knight d3 was played so naturally in the game. And your queen also incoming to dominate these dark squares with your bishop. It's really, really nasty. So this would be a good way to activate all of your pieces. And a very, very cool sacrifice here. So, and again, if you don't take, you've cut off the coordination and you can just take this. And this
Right.
is very reminiscent of the game which I showed you a few days ago, which
Hmm.
I'll show you in your video just so people aren't completely lost. This is
Right.
a Catalan, by the way. So a Catalan-esque position. But yeah, so this is basically a Catalan setup, but I've actually traded this pawn here, so it's a bit different, but it's still a d4 opening, and it's very similar here in a way. So we get this position, and I should have just been just a good chess player and played bishop b3 kind of stuff, go for a slow attack, but I didn't. What I did was I went full steam ahead because I was really happy about getting a good position, and it slowly started to diminish. So even coaches sometimes make mistakes. I got this bishop first and foremost. So this is actually
There he goes again. It's such a clean cutoff when the internet cuts out for you.
am I back?
Yeah, you're back now. You said I
Okay.
got this bishop first and foremost, which is great.
Yeah, I got this bishop which will be dominant after
Hmm.
bishop d3, bishop d4 kind of stuff. You can't ever really push to cut me off because I just take, sorry, I just push, take, and then the rook opens up as well. Really nasty stuff.
Hmm.
So b4, first of all, just trying to dislocate this knight. I've dislodged it, bishop b2, and it becomes dominant this way because now it's just eyeing everything here.
Hmm.
E5, trying to stop the bleeding. F takes, knight takes. Now my rook is opened up, and it seems like I've got everything I could have wanted. So knight e4, take, and I start to see this idea forming in my head, the one that we just looked in Gligoric's game.
Right.
So I play take. It's okay to give up the bishop because now after this move, and after these moves, so just advancing my majority. You can't ever go bishop check because I just pick up this pawn and this is winning.
Right.
Um, so he goes rook here, just defending because I was threatening to capture a pawn here.
Hmm.
H3 was a bit of a miss by me. My idea was kind of just like, okay, ignore this pawn. Let's go in for the kill like this in the light squares because this
Hmm.
bishop, even though it has a counterpart, my bishop is dominant because it's actually doing stuff on the squares. H5, we trade these, and now rook f5. Again, and this isn't even to just activate my bishop. My bishop is already active, but it serves just two purposes in this case. The purpose one being I want to have the only bishop on the board, and I want to cut off this connection so I can play queen takes with check, which
Right.
makes lots of sense. Oh, you're not going to give it to me? That's okay. I'll offer it again. And this time I'm threatening stuff, so you have to take it. Take, queen take, back. Bishop d5 was apparently mate in 7, but I just play queen to e6. And then, okay, I think I've cut out.
No, you're there. You're there.
Okay, so knight takes with check, king g7, rook check. I could just play an endgame here. Like, I could quite frankly just play
Now you cut out.
like this is completely doable, but I'm not gonna do this because like I
Right.
want to have like a really good game to show you guys. Queen f5 now. This is useless. And another cool idea which I got from my chess coach, who is an international master.
Mhm.
He plays this idea of the maneuver queen f2 and then queen h2 check.
Wow.
Again, a clean win would be just to play, let's say, okay, e4, check, let's say rook g5, then we can go queen f6, block, and then queen h4 mate. This would be a lot simpler, but it's pattern recognition, which is something which I tell you all the time, man.
Right.
It's important to find these ideas and have like a whole database of patterns you can recreate,
Mhm.
because this is really what's going to allow you to make those moves really, really quickly. So it's not just a case of, oh, this looks natural. You know this to be winning because it's a known pattern, and that's a
Right.
big difference, which helps a lot of time. And I've played this idea in other games as well. Like, let me show you this idea of the sliding to the H file in this game. So you've seen this game before, but it's a London where I get outplayed because I missed this idea of E4, this early E4 he can play. And he doesn't actually play it. I see that he has E4, which makes me play in this very dubious way.
Mhm.
Better would be just to play like E4 here now. And I'm
Yeah.
completely busted. Like if I take this, knight takes. Yeah, don't underestimate the London, guys. The London is a very, very serious opening. It's not just a boring system. Well, this kind of stuff happens and I'm getting killed already. I'm really not liking my position. I've made some trades which don't really benefit me. He's kind of given me some chances along this. It's not really big. I try to hold on, but I'm just getting squeezed up until the point where he makes a mistake. So all of this is going on. I'm getting absolutely murdered by this guy, who is a friend of mine actually. And then he plays castles. And I'm not sure if you guys can hear, but there's a siren going off, like an ambulance siren in the background.
No, we
This
can't.
was,
Yeah.
oh, that's unfortunate. But this was this guy in this position. Because here I play castles. He goes knight d7, forking my pieces, but it's a mistake. How many times have you seen this? A fork being a mistake. And the point being, like, I just play queen d6 here, and I'm good. Like, I'm good to go. Like, you want to take my rook? That's fine. I'll sacrifice it. Look at all the activity I get from it. Take, take. My bishop can come into play, taking this pawn.
Yeah.
Complete dominance of the dark squares. Just absolutely perfect stuff. And he's a good player. He doesn't take. He plays just knight c5 again. And he gets really pissed off from this, which is why I start playing really provocatively, and we end up in a very huge tactical scurry here. I was told by a candidate master who went on to beat a few GMs after this game that queen takes was better, but that's just like very subtle, detailed stuff. Anyway, we're playing a few more moves ahead. This happens, queen e4, threatening this knight, threatening this bishop,
Yeah.
and you can't really protect everything. If you go bishop to f3, then queen here attacking both rooks. You can't join both them up because of the bishop. So complete dominance of the board. And he takes me, which is an interesting move. This is the only move that actually saves me. And it has not just the purpose of being defensive towards this bishop opening up, but also towards bringing my rook to the h file, which is what I play after queen g4, offering a queen trade. Yeah, just my queen's under attack. I let it hang out, but I let it hang, and then king g7.
Yeah.
He takes my queen out of just pure desperation, and I mate this guy.
I love that move, man. I love this game.
Yeah,
King
the brilliant
G7,
king
brilliant.
g7.
Yeah, yeah. Take my
Yeah,
queen. See what happens.
take it. It's done there for you. So this would be the idea. But let's just wrap up this Gligrit game because
Yeah.
so we're kind of getting sidetracked here. So this happens. Take. We've got our monster bishop. How do we proceed? Knight b3. Queen takes g5, adding pressure to the g2 square. Rook c2. Rook f8. King to d1. a3. And you know what the threat of a3 is? The threat of a3 is to go bishop a4.
Mm-hmm.
So knight c1 is logical because you can plug up the bleeding. So bishop a4, knight b3. And you know what he had in mind also with a3? He had in mind bishop b2. Bishop b2 threatening to capture the knight. And after takes, we just
Push the
push and
pawn.
queen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
push and queen. So he sacks the rook back. And now we're equal material. And it's funny, like, okay, we're equal. It's back to a chess game. Now we actually have to do stuff with the rest of our pieces, like this knight, let's say, bring it back into the game. And yeah, slowly capitalize on this. Okay, doubled pawns. Very bad sign here for white. Queen coming in to h1. This is, sorry, a1. This is why he went king b1.
Mm-hmm.
But this lines up the rook and the king. And it's funny because it was white wants to attack on the king side, and now it's black who's going to ultimately win on the queen side. Rook c1, that's fine. G4, rook c7. Don't mind me. I'm going to go back to my square, which I was kind of undeveloping my knight to the square it was stuck on,
Mm-hmm.
just to get to this g5 square and break through on the king side. King a2, knight g5, h4.
Why aren't we taking
h4.
on F3 after... No,
We're
sorry,
not
sorry.
taking on,
That just hangs
yeah.
a pawn. Yeah, ignore me.
Yeah, we're not taking there. Instead, we're playing
Yeah.
h4, just threatening to push. And if we push, that's obviously winning. Like, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
push, bishop back, push and push, that wins. And if you take it, rook f8, and you're getting forked, you
Yeah,
still
now
have
you're
to push back.
threatening it. Yeah.
Bishop, yeah, and then queen d4 here. Simply threatening to trade queens, forcing the bishop to move again. And if you move bishop here, there would be rook c2,
Right.
and that wins the game. Okay, let's say rook. Sorry, that was rook f2. Let's say rook c2 as a response.
Yeah.
Knight takes e4.
Yeah.
Easy.
Nice.
And then the queen trade wins the game.
And he
So
resigns, I guess.
yeah, he resigns here, and it's
Yeah.
just a perfect transition from such an incredible novelty in the position to a monster bishop, and then transform the monster bishop into just the winning endgame. This guy's incredible. This guy is just insane at chess.
Yeah,
One of the
definitely.
best games I've ever seen. So
Where did you find this game?
it's from the book I Play Against Pieces by Svetslav Glirik himself, and
Hmm.
it's from my study sessions. So I've got every single game he's played in that book on record, and yeah, that's why I pulled this from. So
Nice.
yeah, I have a whole repertoire of his games which I can show. So, anyways, that's been a lot, and it took up more time than expected. Um,
Took
but
quite a
let's look
while.
at the Catalan briefly.
Yeah.
Let's just take a quick look here. So this is just the chessboard, nothing here, nothing to see. Well, here we have stuff to see, which is the main distinction in the Catalan. So in the Catalan, there are two types of positions. There's the open Catalan and there's the closed Catalan. And basically what that means is that we get this Queen's Gambit position, and if it's accepted at any point, like let's just say knight g3, if this happens, it's an open Catalan. And if it stays like this, then it's a closed Catalan. So this is the open Catalan, and usually the best time to take is after castling. So castling and then takes. If you take before you castle as black, then it gets really easy for queen to a4 stuff to happen, and then this is just a really clean way to pick up the pawn. In the same way we looked at in the Gligric game, where the
Yeah.
queen gives this attack here and this attack here. So this would be really good for you. I'll actually leave this in because it's important to know. And okay, if bishop d7, that's fine. I'll just take here and I'll be okay. But following the main line, knight f6, g3, you're going to fianchetto the bishop. And yes, for now, the bishop is kind of locked in because of this pawn structure that black has. But actually, it's going to be not that stable, we'll see. White, almost 90% of the times, does manage to open up the position and be good. So, takes. This is where black chooses to take on his own terms and open up the position. And there are three main moves here that you can play. You can play knight e5, a4, and queen c2. Now, I used to play a lot of queen c2, and it's a lot more rich tactically, but it does give a black a lot of counterplay. A4 is kind of more or less the same story. The idea of A4 is black would really love to reinforce this pawn.
Yeah.
The reason he took this pawn is because he believes he can keep hold of it and be better. So you play A4 just to stop this idea of B5 coming in.
Right.
And then this is supposed to be really strong. But through my experience, I've come to see that knight E5 is the best continuation here. Of course, this is still personal taste, and no matter what they do, like you can't play b5. This is also a way to stop b5 because your bishop just captures a rook for free, and you're really, really well off. And if you do play c5, this is kind of like. So if you're watching this video, this is why you should get me as a coach, because I can find just so many subtleties and in these positions. And the best way to continue here for you, Kiwi, is to play knight a3. What kind of a move is knight a3? Well, it's actually a very good move and logical move because you'd love to place your knight in the center. From a3, you can take on c4, and you can't really do this kind of stuff because you've actually cut off your own connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then if this happens, let's say queen takes. Okay, knight takes. If you try and destabilize these codependent knights, then we're just going to play a very simple queen trade and rook d1. You can't really destabilize these knights. This is quite literally an isolated pawn because these two are not connected. They're not a constant pawn island. You see, they're not really connected, and your knight is just getting in the way. Okay, let's say bishop c5, trying to defend this pawn then.
A3.
Then knight takes.
Okay.
And if bishop takes, then bishop takes b7, hitting the rook. You finally opened up your bishop. Let's say, okay, rook b8 will drop back to f3, just controlling this knight a bit. And your position is amazing here. Just amazing position. You're not even down material, to be honest. So if knight takes, however, well, this is kind of like the life of the Catalan, and you're okay with going down the pawn. So even if you can't recapture the pawn, it's still very good for white because you just have this permanent pressure on these light squares, and it's really not clear how black is going to ever develop these pieces without getting hit by anything. I see a lot of people playing rook b8. So let's just say black gets another move and they make a mistake, rook b8. This is really bad because of bishop f4 kind of stuff. And then you have to move off again. And you've just helped white develop a bit. So
Nice.
that's not really nice. It's nice for you as white.
Yeah, I was
It's
about
not...
to say, for us, nice. Yeah.
And here you can play this kind of stuff, but nothing guarantees he's going to play a mistake like rook b8. So
Right.
I like playing just the plain and simple. I say plain and simple, but it's a very complicated move here. The idea is that you are straight threatening to capture this pawn. If they ever do capture into you, I don't think you can play this in this exact position, but you may have ideas in other positions, like let's say bishop takes b7, bishop takes, rook takes, Of course, you are giving up your powerful bishop, so there should be a good justification, but it is a good move because there is this tactical possibility going on. But the best move is just to take.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say take, then bishop take, take. Again, just a very clean and equal endgame here. You're down a pawn, but you're definitely going to get a pawn back. That much is guaranteed. And how do you play this as black? All of your pieces are stuck on the back rank, and all of white's pieces are ready to jump in. Like, so many ideas here, so many ideas. It's just impossible here to play for the black pieces in a precise way.
Right.
So this is the open. So knight e5 is the key. If there's anything you take away today, it's knight e5, which is a very strong move.
Okay.
And in the closed Catalan, it's kind of like a book you've already read. It's a story you're familiar with, and that story is the Semislav.
Mm-hmm.
So this is quite actually a Semislav for the black side, literally a Semislav position. So the way I'd like you to play this is not with any sort of take, is not with Queen c2, which is a move. E3 is also a move in these Semislav positions, but I really like b3 here. And the idea of b3 is very simply, you're going to develop all of your pieces, so bishop, knight, queen, and then play for e4. Because if black isn't going to open up the position for us,
Mm-hmm.
then we're going to open up by our own force, like sheer force down the board.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also b3 is good because it supports your pawn. Like if you play this,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe they do hang on to the pawn in very kind of like semi-Slav-esque ideas, like a4, b5, just steamroll the queen side. So b3, bishop b2 first, then you play knight c3, b6 as a final way to try to develop. Keep in mind that if they try to play this e5 push too early, they're 100% gonna hang this d5 pawn. You can't play e5 too soon, or this d5 pawn is just a goner and completely destabilizes your position. So b6, queen c2, we're now ready to play e4, and we simply play it. You have to take, otherwise e5 stuff is incoming,
Mm-hmm.
followed by knight g5, and then just queen h7 tactics in the future.
Right.
You need to prepare it a bit more, of course, but that's always a pattern you can play for. Knight takes, queen takes, knight f6. And then the key move here is queen e2. Queen e2, and you have a very nice position. You want to play e2 because you want to defend this bishop and also support rook d1 in some cases. And you want to do this in a way where you're avoiding. So the alternative would be queen hit. But then sometimes you get hit with this, followed by bishop to e4 kind of stuff. And this can be quite annoying to deal with. So I don't
Right.
like this. I like just queen e2. And yeah, this would be the position, and you'd play something like this and just have a very good game. Very easy system to play here. Like very, very small chances of you getting crushed here.
Right.
And yeah, like this is the dream position, you could say. One final thing we have time to look at today, I think, is just a one of the many possible transpositions that you could find. The main one being the Tarrasch defense, and this is very interesting. The Tarrasch defense is the same story basically, except when we get to this point, before playing bishop g2, they're going to play c5 immediately, striking the center.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is you maintain the tension because you need to have in the back of your mind that whoever takes first is slightly worse here. And by that, I actually misspoke. I mean, if black takes first, he's worse. If we take first at the right time, we're better. If we take too soon, we're worse. But the right time would be after castling, bishop b7, and then knight c3. And after knight c3, our idea is going to be, okay, they still have to play castles first. And our idea is that this Tarrasch position is going to transition into an isolated queen pawn through c takes d5, e
Mm-hmm.
takes, d takes, bishop takes, and the bishop has lost the tempo before moving twice, and it's going to lose another tempo after a3 and b4.
Right.
And this is just a very clean way to play this. We can look into the intricacies of this in another lesson.
Right.
And one last thing I'll touch on is there's a very cool sacrifice line here, which is where they play d takes c4 before castling. What's the move here? We've seen this many times. White to play. Queen a4, baby. All day, every day. Queen a4. And okay, we're giving up this pawn, but not really, because knight takes. Isn't this hanging? No, it's not hanging because of bishop takes. Bishop takes, and then if you go queen d7, and you're saying, okay, well, maybe I've just lost the pawn, or maybe I'm gonna have to settle for the c4 pawn. Like, let's say takes, takes, and takes. Isn't this better for black? Because there's rook to c8 coming? Yes, but we're not gonna play that. We're gonna play rook d1.
Hell yeah.
Look at all of this coordination. Look at these disgusting tactics. Of course, you can't take the rook, so you have to play bishop takes. But now we're going to sack the queen. Queen takes, and then we take their queen, and we're just better in an endgame. Isolated pawn. This is very easily capturable next turn. Bishop has very clear developments. Rook is about to double up really quickly. They haven't even castled yet, and they have to, and that's really bad for them. Yeah, and on bishop takes here, before playing bishop d7 and rook d1, they may just sacrifice. They may just not even see it and play b takes. And once you do this, you can of course play like this and just pick up a clean rook. There is an argument to be made here that this is actually okay for black, and it is very tactical and tricky to play against. Of course, you have to play castles first. I have some prep against this. I was gonna play in a tournament game of mine against an FM,
Hmm.
but there was that whole chess scandal about the pairings getting changed and stuff. I'm not gonna go into that now, but this has been more or less what I play. This bishop e3 move, which looks dubious because in some positions you're gonna double up this pawn after like maybe this and this somehow, and then f takes. But this is precisely what I wanted, and this would have been the position that we would have reached, which would be extremely interesting and good for white. This is already +2. So
Nice.
yeah, man. That is kind of like the basic rundown of the Catalan for today. So there's the open, which is when they take. There's a close when they keep the pawns together in the center in a normal queen's gambit declined. And then there's this Tarrasch position, which can be very interesting and fun. Either
Right.
way, I think feel good.
Yeah, man. I definitely am gonna look into this a little bit on my own before next lesson as well. I'll probably wait until like after next lesson and then maybe I'll start playing it. I definitely don't feel like I know enough yet to start playing it, but I'm super pumped to start playing something new with white. I really tried the Jababa London and I was just hating it. So I'm just, that makes me even more
Yeah,
excited to try something new.
you need to play something which you love, to be honest, and you can already play it in Blitz and stuff like that, so get some training in, and I think the positions will
That's
be
true.
really interesting from that.
Yeah, I've been on
Um,
a tear in Blitz, dude. Well, not
nice.
okay. I tilted to the a bit. So I was like high 1600s, like brand new peak, like
Yeah,
1660 or something, and I'm like 1620 right now. But it's whatever. It was just it's been going good on
yeah,
the
you
Blitz front.
yeah. Nice one, bro. And you can play this Catalan setup that I've showed you in your Blitz games, and I think that you're gonna not have any problems with it because your playstyle is very similar to mine, which makes it a perfect fit. So I think the Catalan will serve you well, as it does to me. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's it for today, man.
All right, cool. I'm going to let you go on Discord and do a little outro. And then afterwards, how about I give you a call back and we can just chat real quick?
Perfect, man.
All right.
Talk to you soon then.
See you in a minute. All right, guys. That was my full lesson with Chilli. Again, he is a fantastic coach. You know, full disclosure, he's not the only coach that I'm working with right now. I mean, he knows that. But it's been a pleasure to work with him. He, like I said, he reached out to me very early on, when he found me on YouTube and was like, hey, I like what you're doing. You seem like somebody that would be fun to coach, and we've been having a blast working together ever since. So if you guys made it this far in the video for this special hour and 20-minute long video, thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. I love going over older games like this, like we did for the first hour of this lesson, and just it's so inspiring to see some of the beauty in chess when it comes to these top master games, and it really makes me want to play. It makes me want to improve more than probably anything else. Like winning a game feels good, but even more inspiring than that is seeing the ideas that some of these people can put together and then understanding it after the fact and being like, hey, like I bet you I could put together some ideas like that at some point, and well, let's find out. Let's jump into a game. So anyway, thank you guys very much. Let me know if you want to see more content like this. I have some other coaches in my Discord that I might say, hey, you want to get together for a lesson. If you prepare something, then I'll shout you out type deal. Maybe people that I haven't worked with before. Yeah, let me know in the comments. I'm very curious to get your feedback on this type of video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.